Yeah, I mean, historically that, that definitely happened. Obviously, everyone points to the Irish back
Hmm.
in the day. So people do perceive it as a resource threat. So, oh, someone, you have a bunch of people coming in here that I don't identify necessarily as being part of my group. Maybe they have different cultural attitudes. Often they'll be perceived as from like a different class because a lot of the stuff with the Irish coming in was like they were perceived as low class and they had, some different beliefs and different ways of acting. And they're going to come and now they're going to compete with me for jobs and they're going to lower the cost of, they're going to make it easier for jobs to hire people at lower wages essentially.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but the end, I don't, yeah, I don't know exactly if I agree with the entire framing that he's putting out here, but I do appreciate that you apply it to the left now because the left, I do believe, is going on or actually has gone on to the exact same trajectory, only worse because for, I know that a lot of people, and myself included, are not fans of Trump and they point to Trump's immigration policies. I do not think it's fair to say that Trump is a white nationalist or Nick Fuentes or something like that, where even though the Democrats, the political party has not been taken over by the Hassan Pikers, it does seem like the internet part of the conversation, which unfortunately has its hooks
Totally.
into the
Yeah.
young people who I am worried about where they're going to be in 10 years, if they're going to be in control of the party in 10 years, if they're going to be in control of the newspapers in 10 years, that does have their hooks completely into it. And there was just the other day, it was completely insane. NPR did some puff piece on Hassan Piker. Again, they keep
Again?
all these mainstream outlets keep bending over and giving Hassan these puff pieces. And I don't know what's going on. If it's that they have a bunch of young people in the organizations that are lying to their bosses, or they're just ignorant and they don't care, or if they all are just completely infiltrated by radical Marxists.
Yeah, that's scary, especially since Hassan is kind of. I was hoping Hassan is falling from grace right now, but here you got NPR coming in trying to prop him up.
Yeah,
Didn't they just cut all the funding for NPR? Didn't Trump do that and everyone was
something
super
like that.
pissed about it?
I know PBS Kids or something got shut down, which was people were complaining about that. It's kind of a weird cut there,
No more
but
Sesame Street?
something like that. Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into it. I don't think that I don't think it behooves us to just say all of this is a semantic disagreement. I think it's actually really important to define what a leftist is, because I think that it's important for the people to know where everybody stands, and it's important to get rid of people that are intentionally trying to obscure their beliefs and come in under the guise of being a leftist without actually stating, what their position is, and then having this this dual role that they get to play, where they can propagandize people and radicalize them without actually ever stating what it is they're trying to do. Yeah, like are you for the complete and total abolition of our democracy, or are you just somebody who wants the government to do more stuff?
And just to get clarity, so we know what we're talking about, Destiny, are you saying that Econoboy and Pisco are running cover for those leftists that you think are infecting the Democratic Party, or however you want to put it, right? Is
Yes,
that
but
your
I don't think it's like
accusation?
I don't think it's like a, I don't think it's like they're secretly tanky and so they want to provide cover for their tanky friends. I think it's more just like this. There's
Useful
something that
idiots.
happens in the Democrat brain,
Exactly.
and I've been guilty of it too, where you're so obsessively trying to seem like even-handed that you get rooted out in this world where you're like, I'm trying to be fair and I don't want to have like Hassan derangement syndrome, so I'm just going to say, they're not that bad. I don't know that much about any of this. I'm not sure, whatever. But what it happens, what it causes is this reality where, the conversation for this podcast, what was talked about earlier, was should we appeal to leftists when it comes to gaining political power? When do leftists talk about appealing to liberals to try to gain political power? Or when do
Never.
leftists say, hey, maybe we should chill on shitting on the party, forever and ever when it comes to getting political power? Like, why is the
They hate
conversation
you.
only ever on the Democratic side of things? That's just very wild to me.
Okay, well, the floor is open. Go ahead.
Should
I
some
was going to say
socialist
they do.
wait,
They say they're
I
going to
have a
co-opt the
question.
movement.
I have a question. Yeah. So this is both to Connor and to Stephen. Should some socialists, at least some, be catered to, be appealed to, and be part of the coalition?
No.
So you would agree, therefore, that Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Mamdani should not be catered to and part of the coalition, correct?
Depends on what you mean when you say catered to.
Should they,
So,
for
for
example,
instance-
should we
so for instance-
support
well, so-
the head of a
so-
ticket being a socialist like AOC, Mamdani, if they are the nominees, should we support them?
Yes, but that doesn't mean you're catering to
So-
socialism.
Okay, but you understand.
Wait,
so
hold on, wait. You recognize that supporting somebody at the top of a ticket. Well, if you want to play the yes or no question, I can play the same game.
Yeah.
You understand that supporting somebody being at the
Have you had sex with your dog, Pisco?
Yeah, well, tell us, dog fucker.
There was a clip. I don't know what the context of this was.
Oh, we're
at
gonna
all.
play that clip.
We could play
so
it, yeah.
gonna play that clip.
There's a clip of someone asking Pisco this question. I don't know if it's a rumor. I don't know if it's just him taking the piss out of Pisco, but he doesn't answer the question. It is very strange. So, but regarding the actual
Oh my
topic,
god! I think you actually took it further than me.
regarding
I did not for a minute think that Pisco had sex with his dog until you implied that he did.
I don't. First of all, I didn't imply that. All right, I said I don't know what's going on there because, as I
We're
said, I haven't.
We're
seen
just
the
trying to get to
stream.
the bottom of this.
I haven't
okay?
seen. I'm just trying to get to the bottom. Okay, I'm just asking questions. No, I haven't seen the stream, so I don't know why he wouldn't just say no to that question. I don't know if it was based on like if this was something he just kept asking, and maybe he was like maybe he said no a million times in the conversation and was just tired of answering it. As I said, I haven't seen the whole stream. I only saw one clip where he's asked the question and he doesn't answer, and it seems very
He's
weird.
asked if he's ever raped a dog before. That's the question Pisco is asked.
Which is strange that you'd ask that question out of the blue, and then it's also strange that you wouldn't say, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Obviously not, or make a joke about like, "Why would you call your mom a dog?" Right? You try to play it off. There's a lot of ways you could answer
oh
that
my
question.
god!
So it was a
Pisco
weird
raped
reaction.
your mom.
Yeah, exactly. So, but kind of going on to the topic here about should the Democrats support AOC or Bernie? First of all, I would say I don't think they should, but
Mhm.
the framing of this, I feel, is completely backwards because, as Destiny pointed out, which is very true and a very good point, why is there always this conversation that the majority of Democrats, the majority of Americans have to cater to a group of tiny, crazy extremists? They have to cater to the socialists. They have to bend over backwards and go, oh, we have to align ourselves. Why doesn't the minority of the wacky people, why don't they have to align themselves with the majority? That's the whole point. That's supposed to be the whole point of democracy, is that they should have to do it that way. And if you do have someone like Bernie or even AOC, if they were able to win the top of a ticket in a Democratic primary for president or something like that, they're going to do it by catering to the majority, by moderating their beliefs, not vice versa.
Yeah. The argument that they would make is that that 10% is essential for them to have a winning coalition, that these elections are very close, so therefore 10% can be decisive. I mean, I don't they're not really religious voters or anything. So, and they dominate the conversation during the election cycles. I do think you'd do better with moderate voters on both the left and right, the center left and center.
I'm working together with my classmates to build a community where everyone advances. And the strongest competition?
They beat
Yes.
up on the fucking Nazis. They beat up on the KKK ethno-nationalists. They're laughing stocks in our society right now. And that's because it's politically useful to make them laughing stocks.
Yeah, well, they were. I think we have to use past tense.
Oh, now they're making a rise.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you saw, there's a clip of Tucker Carlson calling Nick Fuentes like a gay nobody or something. I forget the exact line he used.
Mhm.
He called him a gay weirdo or something strange. And now Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson are in a big fight, and all the gripers are attacking Tucker. And I'm kind of curious to see how that all shakes out.
You're
It's
right.
kind of that's like a good it's like a good test to see like who is really who has like the dominant audience exactly.
Yeah, it is a great test. So if Tucker bends the knee to the Groypers, you're thinking, oh shit,
Yes.
things are getting real.
Yes, but if the Tucker crowd, which I would say is like a lot of the people that are in Tucker crowd are probably in the Fuentes crowd, but there's also a lot of people that aren't, but are still very far right. If they don't bend to the Groypers, that'd be a positive sign to me.
Hmm.
So.
Fascinating. God, I love politics. It's so entertaining.
top of the ticket doesn't mean that you are centrally supporting their ideology. For instance, it's possible to cater to, in a roundabout way, people that are further to the left of you without catering to far leftist beliefs, right?
Correct. But you would agree, like, if a socialist is at the top of the ticket, socialists like Bernie Sanders, the Democratic Party should support the socialists at the top of the ticket, correct?
It depends what you mean by support, but generally, yeah, I think you should support
Okay. So you're okay with socialists being part of the coalition, correct?
I don't really know if I consider Bernie Sanders or AOC to be like socialists.
Well, and why is that exactly?
Okay, well, first of all, I mean, I know Destiny's hardcore team, has to vote for a Democrat. My position on that would be, it depends who the Republican is. It's an election. Depends who they're running against before you say, should I, or should anyone support, Bernie Sanders or AOC or something to that effect. But again, you have to bring out that these people would have to moderate their views in order to win those positions. And as you said, I think it's a very important point. You're going to, if you try to appeal to the crazy, wacky 10%, you're making it so much harder to get elected. And you're putting off way more people. There's a reason, remember, defund the police was like this huge thing that the far left, the alt left was pushing until it became so politically toxic that Democrats all across the country had to run as fast as they could away from defund the police movement because it was so horrible. And it's kind of the same thing, I think, right now with a lot of the trans stuff. Everyone always points to the Kamala trans ad, was that there's been a lot of positions that Democrats who are supposedly moderate had to take and have hurt their political efficacy. Greatly. So.
Yeah. The defund the police is a perfect example.
Brian, thanks so much for the $20. Says the reason why socialists and communists has the story of trying to do good while fascism doesn't is because we as a society told the narrative of what fascism means and all the evil that comes along with it. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that America has its own past, rooted in ethno-nationalist beliefs, in slavery and treating Black people as second-class citizens. And because of that, we can kind of see the reflection of ourselves to some extent in Nazism. And so it hits us on a very different emotional level because we're like, oh, we could have gone down, like an alternate version of America maybe could have gone down some similar path or something. That's, I think, so it affects people that way. And then plus, we also have part of our origin story is, in today's world, even though it was only 1945, is that America was the great justice that came in and helped defeat the Nazis, where we don't have a past whatsoever of communism. There's no part in American history we can look back to and say, oh, we had communists running amok in our society and it led to some horrible, horrible disaster. Now, maybe we will in the coming future, but we didn't live through that. So we don't have that negative emotional attachment to it the way that a lot of former Soviet countries, they would look at communism and socialism as negatively as Nazism, or even look at Nazism kind of, like in Ukraine, people point out that because, they would actually kind of look at Nazism far less bad than communism because of their own personal experiences.
Yeah. Eastern Europe lost the Cold War, and it affected them much more than us winning the Cold War. It was pretty much not really relevant in most people's lives.
And Brian, for another $20 says, which we did not do that with socialism or communism because we were allied with countries like the USSR during World War II and allowed them to push their narrative that they just want to do good, which a fascist would say the same. I don't agree with that at all because during the Cold War lasted so much longer than World War II. And during the Cold War time period, the majority of Americans were, in the public broadly, was very, very anti-socialist, very, very anti-communist. We were in a direct conflict. Now, it didn't come to blows the way exactly it came to blows with Germany. Maybe that's part of the psychology here, is that Soviet Union has kind of petered itself out. If we got into some sort of hot war with the Soviet Union at the time, maybe people would have had a very different view of communism. I did see, it's kind of interesting, Adam Kinzinger put this post out on X. It said, just a quick reminder, the Second World War was started by Russia, who allied with Nazis and invaded Poland. Then the U.S. had to bail them out with Lend-Lease so they could push back against Nazis after being betrayed. Russia is a terrorist state. I do wonder if this is a good tactic to sort of get the moderate left on board with being anti-communist. Is, the moderate left really doesn't like Russia. And if you can kind of tie Russia back to the Soviet Union, tie it back to communism, that could be a good persuasive avenue maybe for some people. Keaton Kitsune for $30. Thank you so much. Says, can't stand Pisco ever since he derailed the debate conversation in which the group panel was interrogating her for compiling a dox list with an extremist Antifa group, then tried to dox a panelist for kicking a guy from her Discord. Wow.
What?
That's
Wow.
Because I don't think that they like fit under conventional definitions of socialism.
Do
It's
they
more
want
kind
the
of like
decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production?
Yeah, so that's your definition. That's your proprietary definition of socialism.
That's
but you agreed.
most
Wait, hang on.
socialist definition.
So, for
Econoboy,
example,
do you disagree with my definition?
Yeah. Okay. So just to hop in here. So yeah, I disagree
You don't.
that is. Okay. Do you want me to answer the question,
And
Connor?
give Econoboy space to
Okay.
answer. Go ahead, Econoboy, please.
So
I want you to do a line of
Okay.
Adderall.
Let it.
What did Connor didn't say anything? What's going on here? He just made like a quip. He doesn't really try to interrupt him or anything.
Right.
Econoboy, answer. Go ahead.
I probably should have done an edible instead of Adderall before entering this debate. But
He's on Adderall. That's so much of this.
I saw
it's
completely
so
off topic.
stereotypical.
This is completely off topic. I'm just going to bring this up for anyone that has children. I did see an article today, I think it was in the New York Times, where they were talking about how the original researchers who suggested giving Ritalin and I guess Adderall to children for ADHD
Mm-hmm.
were saying that in the first year of giving it to them, they would find that they would do better at school and other things. But
Oh, no.
after 3 years of taking this drug, they found no difference. It made no difference after 3 years.
Really?
Like they were exactly the same as everyone else in terms of symptoms. But then even crazier than that, I've never heard this before. They said that their research showed that long-term use of Adderall and Ritalin made people shorter on average. if you take it before you stop growing. So if you're a parent, just be aware. If your kids are growing, maybe hold off on
Yeah.
Adderall and Ritalin.
You should hold off on all those drugs. I do not condone the medicating of young children the way we're doing now. It's freakish.
Yeah.
I mean, if your kid has cancer, obviously, give
Well,
him some
that's
cancer
different.
drugs,
Sure,
but
sure.
just. Well, he has trouble focusing. Yeah, he's a fucking kid. Come on.
to answer your question, similar to capitalism, socialism is a diverse universe of people. There's a lot of people who call themselves socialists. Some of them are Marxist-Leninists. Some of them are like what you might call like moderate, like right-wing socialists, I guess, like me, who say that we should just collectivize the ownership of production. People have different ways.
So look, that is super clear right there. I put a spectrum out there, right? Collective ownership of everything and collective ownership of nothing, right? Did he not just say that he wanted collective ownership of everything?
I think
Didn't he? Isn't that what he just said?
Wait, let me listen.
Socialists. Some of them are Marxist-Leninists. Some of them are like what you might call like moderate, like right-wing socialists, I guess, like me, who say that we should just collectivize the ownership of production. People have.
Well, first of all, it's funny he calls himself a right-wing socialist, so that's interesting. But yeah, he said the collective ownership of production.
The means of
so-
production. That's fucking everything.
Well, so no, but he'd be like, well, see, people can still they can own like private property, right? But no one can own a private business. Every business has to be a co-op, essentially,
Yes.
which is stupid.
That's the collective ownership of the entire fucking economy.
Yeah. It's really stupid. It's funny that gets you labeled a right-wing socialist, I guess.
How is that? Look, the right-left thing is completely ridiculous. The scale that I laid out, I don't even know how you figure right-left into that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a right-left
I don't know.
thing.
I think
I guess
well,
the
it's
right
weird.
is more comfortable with hierarchy, so they're more
I
comfortable
think-
with.
I think what he's trying to say is like if you imagine a political spectrum of left and right, and you see that like socialism and communism is on the far left, he's saying that he would be closer towards the center of the socialist, like towards the right of the socialist spectrum, which if the right of the socialist spectrum is there can't be private business and everything has to be a co-op, that's still pretty fucking crazy far left.
Yeah.
Different ways of defining these things. For instance, capitalism includes people all the way from Fabian Liberty to people like Destiny, who basically endorses the Nordic model, right? And they're both capitalists, right? And so I think that of the 10% of people who call themselves socialists and are part of the Democratic Party base, obviously that's a very diverse group of people, ranging from the exact, essentially, people that I just mentioned as well. And I think that's a very sensible way to look at who calls themselves socialist and why. To Destiny's point of when
Donnie's not a socialist or that Bernie's not a socialist, that's crazy.
Just one more sentence. To Destiny's point about when do like the left wingers ever cater to the mob?
Is it weird that not for Mondani, but for Bernie, there was a lot of hand wringing and dishonesty with Bernie and AOC about were they actually socialist? And now Pisco's like, well, obviously they're socialist. It's ridiculous to say they're not socialist. That it's behooving him in the argument.
Well, and there's the narrative that Bernie would have won if the Democrat Party hadn't screwed him over.
I think he might have in 2016 or 2016. I think it's possible.
It would have been interesting because whether or not he could win the general,
I think he could have won the general.
Tell you something about the country.
I think he could have won the general against Trump. I think it was still early enough in the game before the communist stuff really took a hold that people weren't really perceiving. The average person wouldn't perceive Bernie as a socialist. So I think he could have won 2016. In 2020, the last election, like no, well, not really. So
moderates. Well, I mean, I seem to remember people like Bernie Sanders and AOC taking very collaborative positions with people like Biden when he was in office. And I seem to recall like Mamdani, he took a very collaborative position with people like Brad Lander. And Mamdani's campaign, to the extent that it appealed to people broader than just the left wing, he made that conscious decision to do that. He didn't run on a campaign of seizing the means of production. He ran on a campaign of like freezing the rent and providing childcare to people, right? I mean, I take that to be in some sense a means to cater to a broader base of people than just left wingers, essentially.
So I think that if we
you could have a lot. I mean, I fucking hate this because this is so stupid. A lot of the ethno-nationalists, they do the same thing. Nick Fuentes will try to appeal to a bunch of other things, not just be like, white people are the best, white people are the best, white people are the best. Most of the time, he won't even talk about that. He'll try to be like, oh, the rent is too high, or people can't get enough good jobs, people can't get girlfriends. Like they're going to try to appeal to other issues that are popular and to suck people into the movement. And then it's like, boing, white nationalists. Or then it's like, boing, seize the means of production. That's the problem with people like Mondani, who has very explicitly said that is his end goal, is to seize the means of production.
Yeah. I mean, some of his policies are seizing the means of production, obviously. Yes. I mean, he wants government-owned grocery stores, and he's talking about rent freezes. That's freezing. That's him basically taking over your rental business.
Right. But yeah, and I think that it's silly for Econoboy to be like, well, he's not running on a platform of seizing the means of production directly. And it's like, who cares? If that's what his goal is, you would not defend a Groyper who's running for office because they're not explicitly running on a platform of ethno-nationalism.
Right, yes.
About catering to socialists, I think that the issue that we have is there exists a world where you have a bunch of like Bernie Sanders, AOC, maybe Mamdani types of people that are part of your movement and part of your coalition. And I think that if we lived in a world where there was a rich media environment with a lot of people who were socialists, who, some supported the liberals, some kind of didn't, and some were like really against it, then we could have that conversation. But right now, it seems basically ubiquitous across the entirety of the left-wing media landscape to aggressively and violently shit on and attack Democratic candidates as harshly as possible. I just saw, and I'm sure you guys saw, that Vanguard tweet saying that Pete Buttigieg looked like and smelled like a rat. Pete is one of the the most like popular Democratic figures making the rounds on shows. I just watched Crystal Ball fucking roast the fuck out of a senator from Michigan because she wouldn't give like the singular one answer on the Gazan issue. If this is the world we're going to live in, where you want to say, oh, well, socialism encompasses a broad range of people, but when I look to the media environment, almost every single person that would even flirt with the label socialist relentlessly shits on the Democratic Party. I don't know if I can really say, yeah, sure, we should also appeal to these people. It's just not the right media environment.
There's a definitional issue.
Yeah, how many breaking points Crystal fans are going to be voting in the midterms, do you think, over that interview?
Yeah, that interview, we might watch some of it on Monday. The interview that he's talking about
it's crazy.
Is insane.
Yeah.
It's so insane. I don't think it makes me think that Crystal is either completely controlled by her emotions and is a full NPC, or she doesn't actually care about having a positive political change in the world that mirrors what she wants, and is only interested in growing her YouTube channel and her audience and virtue signaling. Because that interview is fucking crazy.
Yeah. At the end of it, when she's just like completely doing the guilt trip maneuver, it reminded me of when we were talking about the guilt tripping in Fantastic Four. I was like, holy shit, she's going for it. Guilt.
If you haven't seen it, there's a Democrat on who seems pretty moderate and is saying about how there needs to be like a lot of emphasis on helping Americans that have all these economic woes, which is something that Crystal has been complaining about forever. That whenever these culture war issues come up, Crystal would say, this is all distraction. We need to care about, the economy and the economic issues of average
prices
Americans.
are too high.
Right.
Yeah.
And then as soon as someone comes on her show and says that, she said, I don't remember exact wording, but she said something to the equivalent of, until you denounce Israel as committing a genocide, I cannot hear what you're saying. I'm going to just ignore everything you're saying. It was so, and then right in the beginning of like the conversation, right at the beginning of her questioning the conversation, is so weird in a very obnoxious way. She's like, why did you even come talk to us? And it's like, what? You have a senator on your show who wanted to come on your show. You could use this as an avenue to become the quote Joe Rogan of the left. You've been complaining about how the left isn't going on enough social media, enough shows. You could try to use this to build a coalition where you can try to get the things that you want, try to move the Democrat Party more in the direction you want. Instead, you just like shit all over it and attack this person to placate your psychotic audience, I guess.
We have to watch it because in the interaction, she says that to give her cover to go as hard as she goes. That's basically her giving herself an out.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's the way I perceived it. Obviously,
You could be right.
It is a fascinating interview. That's the interview that Destiny just referenced there. I'm assuming
that's what he's talking about. Yeah.
Did you look it up because of this?
I did, because I was curious as to what he was talking about.
Yeah, it's vicious.
Here, which is you're saying that Bernie Sanders and Zoran Mamdani are not socialists. Explain that.
That's not really responsive to anything I just said.
No, because you were not responsive to the issue.
See, this is was driving me crazy the first time that I was listening to this. Who the fuck has defined socialism yet in this conversation?
Connor did.
Why are they even? Well, what did Connor say? Oh yeah, he did. He defined it pretty accurately, actually.
Yes,
I remember now. Yeah. Did anyone sign off on that, or is that the definition they're going with?
I mean, Conboy seems like he's trying to draw a bunch of interference here, like muddy the waters. Well, there's a lot of different types of socialists, blah blah blah.
I explain it?
Which has to do with the definition. Yeah. So the question is, if you're defining socialism to only include the people that Steven doesn't like, then maybe there's not actually a disagreement here in terms of who should be leading the party or something.
So I wasn't defining socialism with people I don't like. I was defining socialism. So we can talk about definition of socialism. What I'm looking at right now is the socialist media environment. My earlier argument was that I don't know if I would even consider like Bernie Sanders and AOC to be hardcore socialists. If I wanted to supply that argument,
socialist at all.
Sure, socialists at all. Well, right now, who are the socialists all shitting on almost more than anybody else? AOC and Bernie Sanders. So, I mean,
whether they're shitting on them or not, Stephen, whether they're shitting them or not isn't the question. That's a separate question. Are they shitting or not shitting? The question is, should socialists be part of the coalition? You just said that Bernie isn't a socialist. He identifies as such. AOC is not a socialist. She identifies as such. Mamdani isn't a socialist. She identifies as such. What's your evidence they're not socialists?
So identifying as a political thing doesn't make you that political thing. That's a tautology, and that would be nonsense, number one. And number two, the question wasn't should they be part of the coalition. The question is should we appeal to them. Those are two fundamentally completely different questions.
Destiny. To be clear, though,
I do think there's some Destiny debate tacticking here because you do have to acknowledge that AOC and Bernie are socialists. You just have to go in that direction. You can't deny that.
They want to abolish private property. I mean, this comes up later when they talk about healthcare. Obviously, single payer is socialism, but I don't see the public option as socialism because they're not. The government is going to go in and compete against. Is going to be a player in a free market system. That's not socialism. I mean, I understand some people will argue that, well, it's the government. They have more power than anyone. They regulate themselves, all of this and that. But obviously the government always regulates itself in matters of freedom of speech, all kinds of things, right? Not being able to arrest you without due process, all that kind of stuff, right? They're always regulating themselves.
Your position. It was just last night when you said explicitly anyone that uses the socialist label should be treated like a Nazi, right? Now,
in the media environment is what we're talking about. I'm commenting on your show.
Clarified then, Destiny. Okay, well, that's what you said last night. If you're clarifying just people within the media environment, then I'm just saying that that's a useful narrowing of the discussion then, because
you can call it a narrowing if you want, but anybody that's watched I don't shit on AOC, I don't shit on Bernie Sanders even, and I've been supportive of Mamdani for the.
I think useful is one way to put about it. I think useful is one way to put it. I think weaselly is another way to put it, and I think it is weaselly. I think you're backing off of the strong position. The strong position is socialists shouldn't be a part of our fucking coalition. And now when you're getting pushed, I guess now it's the media environment. But you took the strong position.
I didn't say socialists shouldn't be part of the coalition. I said we shouldn't be trying to actively appeal to socialists. Do you understand that those are two separate things?
They're different statements. They're correct. They're different statements. But you said
no. They mean fundamentally two completely different things.
They're two different statements that mean different things. They're two different statements that mean two different things. But your position, is it your position, therefore, that the Democrats should, as part of their coalition in terms of who to vote for, what kind of policy support, to humor people like Mamdani, humor people like AOC, and humor people like Bernie Sanders? And if that's the truth, then I think that
I don't know what that statement means. Should they humor them? Like, what does that mean? Like, put them on the ballot? I don't know what that question means.
So should they have a seat at the table? Whatever you take the seat at the table.
Seat at the table? Whatever you're, are they going to be Outback Steakhouse?
That's what I'm asking you. So for example, you're the one who says that we need to excise these people from the party. I actually don't know what you mean by that. So whatever your vision of having a seat at the table, not being excised is, whatever you're using when you say these people need to be gone. Under that definition, do you think?
Sure. Okay. Let's let Destiny. Those are good questions, Pisco, and I'd like to know the answers too, right? What do you mean, Destiny, when you say we need to excise these people? How do you see that?
My fixation is almost universally on the media environment when I'm having these conversations. I think when I was watching you guys talk, it was also generally on although sometimes you guys would try to go back to AOC, but like politicians operate kind of in a different world than the media environment operates in. Most of my criticism on the media environment that all calls themselves like leftists or socialists seem to relentlessly shit on Democrats. And I just think it's a really unhealthy and bad world, again, where you see a Michigan senator wants to dip her toes into the podcasting world. And one of the jokes I made about Kamala is one of the reasons why she probably didn't do any shows is because she would get fucked by the right, the centrist, and the left, and she goes on a leftist show and she gets fucking shit on because they only want to talk about fucking Palestine. This is a senator from a blue state, from Michigan. Jesus, that's insane to me. And it would be nice if we actually had like a strong center-left position and a strong center-left media apparatus, and not just a bunch of leftists who fucking hate the party.
Do you understand our position to be that we disagree with your assessment that leftists constantly shit on the Democrats? Do you think that we disagree on that?
I'm not sure all the time. I can't tell.
So you're not sure. So we're here to discuss something where you're not sure if we agree with you on the position that the lefties constantly shit on Democrats in ways we don't like. We agree that lefties constantly shit on Democrats in ways that we don't like. We agree with Hutch, for example, when they constantly shit on people like Biden in certain ways, even though I shit on Biden in some respects. We agreed on the AOC tweets that they shouldn't have shit on her that way. And so there's no disagreement there. So that obviously isn't what we're here to discuss on a point where you're unsure that we disagree on.
I wasn't saying.
So when you're talking about political coalitions, you have to, in politics, you do always have to project strength if you want people to follow you. And it is the most cucked, weak position if you're going to take the Pisco position here, which is, oh yeah, I agree that all these far left people are attacking, the people that we support nonstop, attacking our ideals nonstop, but we still need to build a bridge with these people and bend over backwards for them and cover for them and not attack them and sweep for them. Yeah, that's going to make you cucked, and no one's going to want to be part of the cucked coalition.
Yeah, you got to take it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the coalition. Pull your pants down around your ankles.
That's essentially the argument. But
I know. So enticing, right? Don't you want to join that coalition? Isn't that a coalition you're eager to be a part of?
No one wants to join the cuck coalition. Okay. No. It's got a nice alliteration to it, but not the good kind. Nick Sabansky, thanks so much for the $30. Says, hey guys, long time fan, first time super chat. Well, thank you. I want to thank you guys and share a music video with you guys. Me and my brother made. Hope it makes you giggle. Search Epstein music video band. It's the one by Short End, the band. Thanks. Plus, I still rewatch the Alex Jones Kanye episode all the time. Kino shit. Also, Adam learned 40K so you could own Connor on it. And please pray for me, bros, as my brother is a big Joel fan.
Oh,
no. That's
hilarious.
Yes. But we'll check that out after the video. But thank you. And thank you for $30.
Thanks for the kind words.
And we pray everyone in chat send up their hands of free will. We'll offer some free will prayer to Nick's brother.
Yes.
To get out of the big Joel.
He must be saved from the dirty sweater club.
Yes.
I wasn't saying that we had I was asserting strongly that we massively disagreed there. So, okay, what was the counter person saying?
I got something I massively disagree with. So, I think that every single leftist that I've talked to online, anybody who has any kind of political knowledge whatsoever, defines socialists as decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production, and they use that definition repeatedly.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you. Finally, someone going back to the definition.
Mm-hmm.
I think that my frustration is that there are a bunch of quote unquote social democrats who talk about universal health care, or they talk about, making rent cheaper or some shit like that, which are social democratic Scandinavian policies. And I think they're using the term socialism backdoor in order to rehabilitate the image of this. And not just that, Hassan Piker and plenty of far lefties, plenty of MLs, probably the Vanguard as well. They're ecstatic that this is happening. They're ecstatic that Mamdani has social democrat policies. They're ecstatic that AOC have social democrat policies. They're ecstatic that Bernie Sanders have social democrat policies because it rehabilitates the word in my mind. That shift of the Overton window to the fucking far left is an insidious plot by twats to manipulate the Democratic Party.
I'll ask you, Connor,
and it's going to ruin electoralism.
So
everything Connor said is 100% true, completely fucking true. And people sweeping for this are degenerate traitors.
We're going to get some actual clarity here. So to be clear, Stephen, you don't disagree that people like Mamdani, AOC, and Bernie, they're fine to be in the party, and we're fine to appeal to the kind of issues that they care about in their positions, correct? You don't have a problem with that?
I would say, hold on, real quick.
I'm asking Stephen a question. I'm going to get to you and see if you disagree with Stephen, actually.
Hold on a second. I want to say something before you and Destiny talk for the next 40 fucking minutes. What I would say is that if the socialists are proposing social democrat policy, but then they get what they want, and then they try to yank the political window further left.
He never says anything about that.
It doesn't behoove him to.
I mean, I'd kind of like to know where he's at on that definition. Where I want to know where Pisco is on that spectrum. Is he for abolishing private property rights?
Is he?
I mean, there's some people that come out and they're like, the employer-employee relationship is immoral. We need to make it illegal. Like, what the fuck? You're talking about a crazy person then.
Mm-hmm.
Is Pisco one of those crazy people?
I mean, know. He didn't used to be. So
People want to know.
maybe.
People want to know this shit.
Problem with these people, the people identified, Mamdani, Sanders, AOC, being part of the Democratic coalition, and however you define Democratic coalition, and having their positions catered to, or people having their positions in general as part of the Democratic coalition. Do you have a problem with that?
Okay, so there's two separate questions. So one, like generally, I'm probably almost always going to support a blue candidate over a red candidate in this current media environment, or in this current political environment. Number one, but number two, when you say, do you have a problem appealing to them? I mean, that means different things. If you say like, would I have a problem if we were to appeal to Bernie Sanders coming out and saying, I want to socialize all of the music productions in the United States, I would have a problem with that. But if you're saying, do you have a problem appealing to Bernie and AOC and Mamdani saying we need to find ways to make rent cheaper in cities, and that might mean a policy like rent control that I personally don't like, but if they want to try it, I mean, I wouldn't be like fundamentally opposed to having that as part of my party's platform. Then no, I mean, like it would depend on what things we're talking about appealing to.
Like, agreed. You're okay with the socialist being at the top of the Democratic ticket in the sense of socialists.
Yeah, but again, but this is part of the issue. You call it.
Is that right or no? Am I wrong?
This is not like a simple thing. You're like doing like the.
He's basically asking, if a socialist wins the Democratic nomination, are you going to vote for that person?
Right.
Right? Isn't it kind of the same thing to ask a right winger, if an ethno-nationalist wins the Republican primary, are you going to vote for that person?
It is. It is the same question. Yeah. Yeah.
And the answer should be hell fucking no.
Right.
Hell. Now, if an ethno-nationalist is running against a socialist, oh my God, we're fucked.
Then we're in trouble. Yeah.
We're in big trouble.
What is a woman at me? What is a socialist?
No, I'm asking you. Do you have a problem with Bernie Sanders being at the top of the ticket?
You got to let Destiny answer.
That's a specific question.
Top of the ticket? No, like if him being a senator from Vermont, no. If he was president, probably not.
Yeah.
So when you say a socialist, if you're talking about somebody who wants to abolish by law all of private enterprise and maybe even attack the democratic underpinnings of our political parties, right, and have a single party rule, I would be opposed to that.
That doesn't describe Bernie. It doesn't describe Mamdani. It doesn't describe AOC. Correct?
No, but Mamdani, Bernie, and AOC are on the outer perimeter of what is considered socialist, and they're attacked by the center part of what is socialist.
Can Pisco have a conversation about substance at all? Because this is just like word talk here.
No.
He's like, look, let's just define socialist in someone that identifies as a socialist.
Well, the irony is that in the beginning of maybe it's the projection here. The irony is at the beginning of the conversation. He says, oh, this is all just semantics. This is all just semantics. And then he spends so much of the conversation trying to win.
Diving into semantics. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I hate that. Props to Destiny for actually bringing some substance.
Mm-hmm.
That's my issue. You could probably find an outer perimeter fascist that I might be okay with. If he's some fascist who's like, yeah, I think we should protect America as an ethno-state, and I'm defining ethno-state as like the current ethnic composition of America, and I think that we should have like stronger rules on immigration. I was like, yeah, I'd probably fucking support this dude or whatever.
The problem is that, like, and you understand, and Econoboy would lay this out, that Bernie, AOC, these types, they come from a long tradition of democratic socialists from like UK, Australia. He brought up Clement Attlee, and this is not some fringe movement. These are democratic socialists that exist in countries all over the world. So we're not talking about this idiosyncratic belief of socialism. It's a version of socialism that exists, and you're okay with it being part of the party. So the question isn't one of categorical. You're okay with some socialists. You would vote for some socialists. I'll ask Connor the same question. Connor, are you okay with someone like Bernie Sanders being at the top of the ticket, AOC being at the top of the ticket of the Democratic Party?
No, I would either abstain from voting or I would fucking vote against them. Like, for instance, if there's a moderate Republican compared to AOC or Bernie, not that moderate Republicans exist anymore, but if they existed, I would pick a moderate Republican over AOC or Bernie.
I think the bigger disagreements between you and Destiny there. I think Destiny's okay with some socialists.
Well, to be clear,
being a part of the Democratic coalition.
Connor is a Republican, so I would expect him to say that. Yeah, no shit. But voting for somebody is a lot different than appealing to somebody. These are two different things, and we keep playing like this clever game of trying to trouble.
Where do you think? Let Destiny finish. Hold on. Let Destiny finish his thought. Please go.
Well, that's it. No, I'm just saying that like appealing to somebody is a lot different than voting for somebody. I'm guessing if I was in New York and
there are no moderate Republicans. It's weird that Connor would say there are no moderate Republicans left if he is a Republican.
Yeah, I don't know if his argument is just that because everyone's appealing to Trump now, or I don't know. I've never heard him talk about it. So.
Right. And is he just talking about elected officials, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Or is he talking about all rank and file Republicans? Interesting comment.
there was a plethora of candidates. Mamdani probably wouldn't be my first choice, but I'd probably vote for him in the primary, or I'm sorry, in the general. But that doesn't mean I would like want to appeal to a socialist or whatever.
But I agree
okay,
that
like we have to. I think there's a useful thing to look at what this actually looks like in actually existing politics, right? So in 2016, when Bernie Sanders got 45% of the vote in the primary, something like that. He was involved in the platform committee for the DNC. He was like a main speaker at the DNC in 2016. He was able to extract a lot of concessions to the party. Like, I think that because of him, the party added in marijuana legalization, a $15 hour minimum wage, I think carbon pricing, and I think maybe there was some stuff about the death penalty. I want to say that was something that Bernie Sanders really pushed to add into the Democratic Party platform. Those, and again, that's like a very direct appeal to Bernie Sanders and like an appeal to the unity between the centrists and the socialists and the Democratic Socialists.
No, nothing. What policy there was socialist?
Okay, so Destiny,
here's where we're going to run into the problem, because nothing that you just said there was socialist. And there's this game that's played where
Destiny, you're wrong about that. You're completely wrong. Okay,
15 an hour is socialist.
Okay, do you think a progressive income tax is socialist?
Not necessarily, no.
Right. So the Communist Manifesto proposed a progressive income tax, right? So
does that
obviously
make it a socialist policy?
I would say, generally speaking, that the Communist Manifesto, the manifesto of the Communist Party, like it probably is something of an authority on what it means to be a communist party.
The Communist Manifesto is a pamphlet made so that farmers could read it and join a revolution against the state.
Only reason,
really where we're going by defining
I hate this way of defining socialism. Something said in the Communist Manifesto makes it so. Some policy from the Communist Manifesto makes it socialism.
So I haven't watched a lot of Econoboy content. I don't have a good mental model of him, but that interaction is so dishonest that it really puts him very low in my mental map here. Because if you're going to try to make the claim that progressive taxation is socialism, fuck off, please. That's like, well, the Nazis liked water and dogs, so liking water and dogs makes you a Nazi. That's that level of argumentation. Progressive taxation is not a socialist policy whatsoever.
Right.
And it's hyper dishonest that just because a socialist would advocate for a policy like that, which I imagine they'd only advocate for it until they get what they really want, which is the abolishment of money and, class and all those other things, advocating for a policy that is not socialist, just be like, that's just, I can't even fucking put into words how dishonest that is.
Well,
Like what?
Destiny, the only reason
aspects of communism and socialism that are shared in democracy.
I can't even finish my point.
This is so bad faith. So Econoboy brings up a point. He says, "Is this policy socialist?" And as it's sort of embodied in the Communist Manifesto. And you go a broader point and say, "Well, the Communist Manifesto has this other purpose." That's not the question on the table. Whether it has other purposes.
That's not the point. So that's not the point. So the point is that it's not about whether or not we would semantically define something like a progressive income tax as communist or not communist. It's about these broader movements and what their general ideological disposition is on all of the different set of possible positions within the policy debate. So I would agree to your point that like in terms of socialism being the decommodification of labor and also like the collective ownership of the means of production.
There you go. The decommodification of labor. That's another key word there. What's he mean by that? Labor is no longer a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
You can't sell your labor? Is that what he's saying? That's a pretty big infringement on your rights.
And if that's the way that you define socialism, then obviously these aren't like socialist policies, quote unquote, but that doesn't mean that you're not appealing to like the broader socialist movement and the broader like socialist apparatus of advocacy when you propose things like a $15 an hour minimum wage or
Econoboy, just for clarity, so I understand, you're saying when you say I want to appeal to socialists, you're saying things like, oh, pick policies that socialists would also like.
I'm saying that insofar as socialists and very progressive Democrats are a part.
This feels so dishonest to me. We have countries, most countries, if not every country, has some form of progressive taxation, and they're not socialist countries. Okay, so that shows you that you can have a policy that completely fits within the framework of liberalism, doesn't neatly fit into the framework of socialism, but neatly fits into the framework of liberalism that can be implemented, that people are totally fine with and totally support, without the country becoming a socialist country, and that policy has nothing to do with the main aspect of socialism, which is, as he said, the commodification of labor or seizing the means of productions or any of that other nonsense.
Yeah, all the keywords he's throwing out there.
Yes. And so he's making Connor's exact point that Connor said earlier, which is that these people want to use borderline safe policies that aren't really socialist, or maybe in the border realm between socialism and capitalism, or socialism, liberalism, I should say, that people would support, and they want to use the popular things to backdoor their more extreme views.
Exactly.
That's the point of this. That's the point of it.
Yes. Yeah. It's just progressive taxation, guys.
Oh my God.
You can't own anything.
It's so stupid.
We need to decommodify that labor.
Right.
Existing base of Democratic voters, they should have some proportional say in things like party leadership positions, committee assignments, the platform of the Democratic Party, fundraising distribution, activist-based organizing, strategic discussions. They should have some kind of proportional say in all of those discussions.
But the problem is those people, if they truly identify as socialists and
You know who else had progressive taxation, Adam?
Who's that?
The Nazis.
Did they really?
I'm so
National Socialists?
The Nazis had progressive taxation.
Who would have thought it?
I mean, I guess that means it's a fascist policy. If you support progressive taxation, you're a fascist.
Were the Nazis actually fascist, though, Sitch? I mean, think about it.
Oh, no.
They have socialists in their name.
Oh, no!
not just like liberal light or socialist light or whatever we're calling these people, they're not going to be pushing for these outer perimeter things that socialists might agree with when it comes to liberals. So when you say like a $15 an hour minimum wage or like a progressive taxation system, these are quote unquote socialist policies because they're mentioned in the Communist Manifesto. You don't need communism or socialism to talk about either of those issues. And what I don't like is this weird game that's played where somehow socialists are allowed to no true Scotsman every single good thing that our capitalist liberal society has produced and say, oh, well, you like vacation days? That actually came from socialism. You like a minimum wage? That came from socialism. You like labor unions? That came from socialism. And every bad and shitty thing is ascribed to the capitalist part, despite the fact that that's what's even creating the necessary prerequisite wealth to even have these other things.
Wait, Destiny, what does that have to do with? Wait, I don't know what that has to do like at all with what I just said. That what I'm saying fundamentally is that I think it's sensible to make policy concessions to the broader socialist apparatus insofar as they're a part of the base. It sounds like you don't even.
We don't have to make that's not a policy concession.
Okay.
What are the policy concessions?
Yes. Is Econboy really going to sit here and pretend that if a mainstream Democrat supported progressive taxation, which we already fucking have, and higher minimum wages, that all the communist people on YouTube and all the alt-left people are going to be like, wow, they really batting for us. We totally support them. And we're going to shut up about everything else.
Fuck no.
No, it's so stupid.
Well, he probably believes that, but it's not
Yes.
that's not how it's gonna pan out.
So I'm looking up, it says John Stuart Mill, very famous liberal philosopher, supported a form of progressive taxation.
Really? Commie?
Yeah. Thomas Paine supported forms of progressive taxation. Adam Smith, that old guy, remember Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations? Yeah.
This is one of my biggest gripes with people on the right is they're willy-nilly assigning the socialist label to things that are not really socialist, like progressive taxation.
Yes.
It's so empowering for the socialists. Why would you do that?
Terrible.
Well, they do it because they don't
Well,
like
that and this is
progressive
part of the
taxation.
problem. This is part of the problem that the right has created this cry wolf syndrome of the fact that they were calling, because of the Cold War, and it was effective to call the left socialist, they cried wolf so much that now that the socialists are here, the alt left is here, so many people are just immune to it. They're deaf to it. The same way that the alt left and the woke left, cried racism, and now people are kind of deaf to the actual racist.
Yeah.
Policy concession to a socialist. It's
would
literally
be
not. Hold
considered
on.
as such. It
Wait,
would be considered as such.
No, absolutely not. If
Yes,
you got
it
rid
absolutely
of,
would.
If you got rid of all the socialists, could you still get a 15 an hour minimum wage?
Yeah.
Then it's
I
not a
don't-
policy concession to socialism.
Wait. No.
Destiny, under really quick, Pisco. Destiny, even under a quote unquote liberal economic frameworks, people in my replies are calling countries like the Nordic societies liberal capitalist societies, even though they do quote unquote socialist things as you would just define, like social ownership of the means of production. Like there's a lot of quote unquote socialist policies that those countries have engaged in that people are labeling as liberalism and doing these kind of things. And it's like, whatever, if we want to have narrow definitions of things, that's totally fine with me. But I think that insofar as like the socialist movement, and when we went to the topic of the debate, courting the left, right, conceding things to the left, the broader left, I include very progressive Democrats in that who might identify as capitalists or might be misaligned in some way. That includes things like broader progressive policies, like I mentioned the death penalty, minimum wage, things like that as well.
When I say court the left, and when I was designing this topic, maybe I could have been more clear. I'm not talking about issues that both liberals and leftists share. Like both of them agree that we should treat kids nicely. Both of them agree that we should be kind to our neighbors, things like that. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about things that are specifically and uniquely.
So name them. So
Well,
if
no,
you're
but-
finding,
so, like,
The
for example-
commodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production.
Holy fucking shit. So if
Hassan is a good example, right? The example.
Hassan isn't a policy. Hassan isn't a policy. If you're talking about appealing to people, Econoboy gave you a response. He's talking about things that these people care about, socialists care about. If all you're talking about is people,
Okay. No. Okay, so I'm going to say something that pisses me off about this conversation. Oh, somebody else started talking. I'm going to roll my eyes. Shut the fuck up, Pisco. Take your eyeballs and fucking shut them the fuck up, okay? So saying everything good is socialism is dumb as fuck.
No one
okay?
said that.
Not what I'm doing. Connor.
We did.
No
We
one
just
fucking
did. I
said
just listened to it.
that,
Hey,
dipshit.
shut the fuck
No
up.
one
I listened to
fucking
you
said that,
thoughts for the
dipshit.
past 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Shut the
but
fuck
we didn't
up.
straw
Shut
man
the
the
fuck
shit
up.
out of you, Connor.
Shut the
You're
fuck
being
up.
an idiot.
You're fucking
All right, shut
idiot,
the fuck
dude. You
up.
didn't say that. No one said
My
that.
turn. I have the talking stick. Shut the fuck up. Okay. So saying like, oh, a minimum wage is socialist. Progressive taxes is socialist. Firefighters is socialist. Police are socialist. Teachers are socialist. This is the kind of fucking bullshit that is the obfuscation that I'm talking about, where you're basically talking about normie, lib, governmental policies that are perfectly conducive to a free market fucking state. And you're like, oh, it's just a gradation of the economics. Well, why don't we just go with the right-wing definition of socialism, where socialism is when the government does anything ever whatsoever.
So,
Then at that point, I'm a
You're not
socialist.
listening. You're not listening.
J.D.
Give it
Vance is a socialist. Everybody's a fucking
hold on.
socialist.
Give it to Pisco and Econoboy to respond. Go ahead.
So Econoboy specifically didn't say that. I'll let Econoboy do, but you're just not listening. But I want to talk after Econoboy.
So just to be clear, again, I'm grounding everything that I'm saying in the actually existing people that call themselves socialists and call themselves very, very
If
progressive.
there's a good policy,
if I could just finish, Connor, all the bullshit about interrupting. So
no, I heard it.
Okay. Well, you interrupted. So just give me a second here. I'm grounding this in the actually existing people that call it socialism, that call it whatever, very progressive capitalism or very progressive like policies in general, right? So insofar as you're saying, oh, my narrow definition of socialist policies is decommodification of labor and the socialization of the means of production, then to be fair, according to me and according to some other policies that have been proposed, that is like almost exactly what we would be doing.
Give us an example, just an example of a.
Wait.
Why'd you interrupt him? Wick, what are you doing?
I want Econoboy and Pisco to have an argument or debate with some ethno-nationalist who tries to say, listen, let's not fight about, we can have, these definitional games about what it means ethno-nationalism. Ethno-nationalism is a very broad, spectrum. And you guys want to focus very specifically on the whole, ethno-nationalist part of ethno-nationalism. I want to focus on, increasing the minimum wage increases for people and better working conditions and better housing for people.
He obviously they wouldn't go for any of that. They'd see right. They'd be against that categorically. So this is exactly what they're doing in the socialist realm. Why Wick cut him off before he really gave his definition of socialism. Because he is trying to say, Connor is right to call it out. He is trying to say, oh, there's all these things in society that are already socialist. And those things are good. So we should just do more socialism. We should just make it illegal to hire somebody.
Yeah.
Make it illegal to pay somebody to do work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a radical jump. I want to know what Econoboy is advocating for, right?
Right.
I want to know if he's talking about all business endeavors are owned or managed by the government, or collectively owned and managed. And all other operations, like obviously we do have public schools, but we also have private schools, right?
Right.
Socialism is when you come in and say, we're going to make the private schools illegal, right?
Yes.
This is what Bernie Sanders wanted to do with healthcare. He wanted to make private insurance illegal, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, look, I don't like this business. I think we should get rid of that business.
Is there
Can I ask a question just real quick?
Fuck this. I didn't come here to play the No True Scotsman for fucking
wait. Also,
40
not the
minutes.
policy game.
That's
I'm just
not what
curious
I'm
because
doing. I'm doing the exact opposite.
Okay, wait. Econoboy keeps bringing up like AOC and Bernie Sanders. Can you name somebody in the media environment that identifies as a socialist that is friendly towards the Democratic Party?
Like what? Like in the
what is that
mainstream media
relevant?
environment?
Anybody in the media
Why is that
environment?
relevant to the conversation? You want to change the
politicians-
You'll make
conversation?
another
I
point.
don't want
This
to change
isn't
the
a courtroom, you
conversation
son of
because
a bitch.
politicians have to operate within the very real world of trying to get elected. So necessarily their positions are going to be probably a bit more constrained. And also these are people that, I mean, maybe Connor has, but I don't shit on AOC or Bernie Sanders. That was never what this conversation was ever about, like ever. Like, I'm curious, in the media environment, are there any people that identify as socialists that are friendly towards the Democratic Party in the United States of America?
Why is that relevant to whether or not the Democrats
Because my
should-
main criticism...
Why is that relevant? That's the whole fucking point of the conversation, is that you're trying to bend over backwards to these specific people, Pisco.
Yeah, should we court the far left? That's what
Yes.
the debate's called.
Criticism, I'm telling you, because my main criticism is that you're saying Democrats should appeal to socialists, and you're picking the outer perimeter socialists that are the least socialist people who have won elections by being the least socialist people, saying that the outer perimeter beliefs that we're appealing to are things like a 15-hour minimum wage, which aren't even necessarily socialist policies, when the issue we have is that the central tenets of socialism, like the abolition of all free enterprise, the abolition of all private property, the destruction of the political parties in the United States of America, those are the people that are dominating the media environment. And you're asking us to appeal to those people to capture people like AOC and Bernie Sanders. I'm not worried about the AOCs and Bernie Sanders. I'm worried about the people that worked for Bernie Sanders, like your Brianna Joy Grays, or the people that are running the entire left-wing media online apparatus, which is why I'm asking for a single person who identifies as a socialist that supports the Democratic Party.
So
I don't
if
know.
you're
Good
asking for-
question.
If you're asking
Great
for a single
question.
person who identifies as a socialist that supports the Democratic Party, there's obviously a lot of those people. I just said those are 10% of the people that vote for Democrats. Now, if
Media
you're asking
people.
for-
I want to make this point because
Okay,
it's relevant to the
holy
conversation
shit.
we're having.
Okay,
Fuck
what's your
you,
relevant point?
Pisco. If
Oh,
every
dude,
time you open your fucking mouth, I go, oh, shit.
It's impossible for you guys.
I would have liked an answer to be forced on that one, instead of the topic to be changed. Name
I
someone.
would too. Yes,
name
it's a
someone
great
here.
question. They can't name someone, so that's why they want to move on. I love how half this debate is Connor bitching about everyone complaining about Connor talking. It's like over and over and over again. Connor,
Mhm.
why do you even go on these things if everyone's just going to complain every time you talk? What's the
Great.
point?
Grid Motorsports, thank you so much for the $50. Thank you, Grid Motorsports. Says, I have debated 2 out of the 4 people on that panel, and they're all paid by Progressive Victory. It's hilarious to see this play out. Definitely. That is.
I
it is
thought
funny.
Connor isn't working for Progressive Victory anymore. Weren't they
Well,
disbanded?
he
after
said
the
they were
election?
all. He said
Oh,
they
they
all
were.
were paid
Okay.
in the past. Yeah.
Yes. I saw the list going around. Notice how Sitch and Adams' names weren't on that list.
Wasn't someone accused us of being on that list?
Yeah, who was
I
it?
don't remember who it was, but we were like, "What? You think we
Yeah.
get paid by someone to do something?" Give me a
We
break.
saw the list going around.
I know. Brian, thanks so much for the $55. Thank you. Says Sitch, can you imagine a world where we treat the USSR like we did the Nazis? That would have been amazing. That would have been fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Where we push the narrative of all the evils the USSR did to its own people, take pictures of political prisoners in the gulags and the famine of the Holodomor. If we did that like we did the Nazis, don't you think they'd be seen in the same or similar light?
That'd be a good move.
I think that would have been fantastic. I think basically what happened was, and the reason that didn't happen was there were a bunch of socialists in America who were trying to interfere and soften the blow of the USSR for the entirety of the Cold War, essentially. They kept trying to soften up. And when that came out, that was impossible, when the gulags came out, when the famine came out, they just pivot, what's his name? Noam Chomsky would do this. They just pivot away and be like, oh, well, I don't support that. So that was a fake socialist country. I support a real socialist country, right? They would frog hop away. And so I do think that the reason that what you're saying didn't happen is because we did not have that past in America for people to grab onto. If we did have that past for people to grab onto, people would not have tolerated the Noam Chomskys, the left-wing academics, and all these other people keep running interference with socialism. So I agree with you, but I don't think it counters what I'm saying. I think they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. There's a great book on socialism where a lot of the people in America were watching the Soviet economy and thinking that they were going to pull ahead, that they were going to beat America.
Yes.
Because they were socialist and they wanted to see that. Socialism, the failed idea that never dies, by Kristen Niemitz, I think it is. That's a great book. Yeah. She goes into the history of all that.
But obviously, yes, I would support, and I do think it was a massive failing of our society that those pictures, those stories weren't just heavily shoved down Americans' throats. And I'm sure a large part of that had to do also with the fact that it just seems like dispositionally, personality-wise, teachers seem to lean, I think, to the left, it seems like. People that kind of are more interested in going to that field seem to lean to the left. So they're more likely to be more dismissive of extreme leftists, even if they're not extreme. They're just people would seem to be generally more dismissive of extremists that are closer aligned to them than the other side, unfortunately. J-Mac, thanks so much, Serga5. Daddy J-Mac, the $50 says, I want to say I'm so glad you and Sitch have the temperaments you have. The screeching blood sports just aren't my cup of tea. Anger should be deployed with purpose. It elicits such a bad reaction like listening to a spoiled child throwing a tantrum. I agree. I do agree with that. Chachi McSwag, thanks so much for the $50, says, quote, you have to support Hassan because Bernie calls himself a socialist. Is the insane implications of these arguments, if Bernie calls himself a Nazi tomorrow, do we have to appeal to Nazis now? This stream is a great birthday present. S-Class is the best class.
That's a great point right there.
That is a good point. Yeah.
That's why I hate this. Pick a definition and stick to it. Talk about the reality.
Yes. Crack Rock Study, thanks so much. Our favorite Ninja Turtle villain for the $20 says, I have a debate with a friend on the subject of socialism equaling communism. I argue that socialism is a digestible version of communism that leads to it. My friend argued that they're different. How do you guys differentiate them? So I think we talked about this the other day. I think the actual, if I look it up again, the actual very specific academic definition was something like communism believes that the government, there should be like a one-party system where the government controls everything. And socialism just means that you don't believe there should be private businesses, that everything should have to be a co-op. It seems like theoretically they could be separate. In practicality and reality, I don't think they could, because in order to manifest a society where there is no private business, I do believe you would require an authoritarian government to seize power, to take control of everything.
I learned that Marx was a contemporary of Darwin and was working on a theory of the economy evolving. So socialism and communism originally was in the context of that evolving economies, and socialism was a step on the path in the evolutionary cycle where there would be certain features, and communism was a step on the path when there would be different features. And it's difficult for me to remember the features of the socialism, but the communism was basically the end of history when there was a moneyless, classless, statusless society. So, and socialism was kind of the halfway point there. Marx understood that capitalism would lead to socialism, and socialism would lead to communism. So,
yeah, no, you're correct. And actually, yeah. So what I said is incorrect, or rather, it's what I think a lot of the socialists try to push out to trick people.
mm-hmm.
Because if you do look at Karl Marx, so maybe they try to do some redefinition work here. But if you do look at Karl Marx, yes, you're completely correct. Karl Marx laid it out like socialism is where the working class takes power and they establish the dictatorship of the proletariat. And that is the transitional state to communism, which would be the classless, stateless, moneyless society where everything is fully equal.
A lot of this hinges on a concept called superabundance, which I never hear anybody talk about. And it's funny because we might see superabundance in our lifetimes, right? I mean, we're getting pretty crazily close to superabundance. So Marx postulated that capitalism would lead to this superabundance, and then obviously that would transform society and the economy, which is happening. I don't think it's happening in the way that a lot of the socialists think. Like, they think it's going to abolish hierarchies and stuff like that, which obviously we talked earlier about how I don't think that's possible. Even if we do reach superabundance where everybody's physical needs are met, you're still going to have people who want more, and there's still going to have people who compete for status. Status is not going to go away. And with people competing for status, there's never going to be superabundance in status, right? Status is always going to be a limited resource. But look, all of this is the origins of these ideas, but I don't think they're really relevant in the conversation today. I think the spectrum that I laid out is more relevant, right? When people think about socialism, they think about collective ownership of different things, right? Different institutions. They think of the government as collective ownership, and when the government does things, that's the collective ownership of some sort of institution. So I think that's relevant.
Yeah, in reality, people do use the term socialist communist very interchangeably. They probably should. In reality, I think the only distinction is that the Soviet Union, I believe, called themselves communist. They got a bad rap. So now all the communists call themselves socialists to not be associated.
Isn't that so true?
I think that's really
it's just a label.
Difference. Yeah, it's just a label that people use to try to obfuscate what's going on.
It is interesting to think how much Marx was influenced by Darwin, right? Because Darwin showed up and he's like, oh yeah, there's the origin of species. There's this evolutionary process that takes place in biology and in the animal kingdom. And everyone's like, I wonder if that process is going on in economics. Well, it is. All right, what are these people talking about?
Because your whole job here is to muddy the waters.
I think you're muddying the water. That's exactly what I'm going to accuse you of momentarily. So shut up.
You were brought in. You and Wick are being brought in to give cover to Destiny.
Counter.
I'm going to offer.
Hold on. Counter. Stop.
Clarity.
Stop. Peace go first, and then you can respond.
So
go ahead.
Clearly, with respect to policy,
Connor's so chapped. It's so great. Connor's so mad that Pisco got to go first. See him roll his eyes. He's like, look at him. He's seething right now. He's seething and coping.
that socialists support, if what we mean by appeal to socialists is to literally propose policies that these types of socialists would support, you guys are okay with them, certain of these policies, right? And we're just now defining what the scope.
I'm sure they support clean water, Pisco. Who gives a fuck?
Of that agreement is, what the scope of that overlap is, but you don't have a problem in principle with appealing to socialists if by appealing to socialists we mean promoting policies that they like, correct?
Yeah, but that's a meaningless statement.
Policies are good.
Okay, so now let's actually
wait, because the question would be, are you okay with appealing to members of the Ku Klux Klan?
They like clean drinking water. Are you sympathetic to non-Muslims?
Look at that. Everyone knows. Everyone loves clean drinking water.
Yeah.
Let's say that you do like city renovations.
So now let's. So now let's
Yeah, are we allowed to appeal to the Ku Klux Klan? Come on.
actually talk about the policies and whether they get to
No,
the
you have to
core.
answer that question. Would you be okay
I'm
having
okay
a
with
party that
I'm
appeals to
okay
the
with
Ku Klux Klan?
I'm okay with the party. I'm totally willing to bite bullets. You know I bite bullets. I'm totally willing with a party to appeal to members of the Ku Klux Klan if what is meant by that is appealing to common sense policies that everyone can.
which is what, yeah.
Bullshit. Oh my God. Detecting lies. Lying. If you appealed to the Ku Klux Klan for anything, Pisco would be all over you. He'd be calling you a Nazi by the end of the day. You would not get away with that.
Excuse me. Let me finish. Wait. It's not a pointless question. It's not a pointless question because there are policies that you would consider socialist, I think, under your definition, no true Scotsman definition of socialist, that maybe the Democrats should appeal. So, for example, would you be against? Do you think, first of all, that a national healthcare service is a socialist policy?
No.
Okay. Can you give an example of a socialist policy?
Things that involve taking away the means of production from private owners, from capital owners, and giving that so that the workers are exclusively the ones that are in control of the means of production.
So a single payer healthcare system, let's say a health insurance system, let's put it aside national healthcare, a single payer healthcare system that makes it illegal or outlaws private insurance, you would not say that's socialist?
Socialism, 100%.
If you're talking about the government owning everything from the top down, then including the hospitals, then theoretically you could call that socialist. Some people might.
What? Theoretically? Fuck yeah, that's full-blown socialism. What's happening here, Sitch?
Yeah.
That's the most obvious example of socialism.
I know. He doesn't want to bite the bullet because, the UK and other systems seem close to that. So
public option. Oh yeah, the UK, 100% socialism.
Well, they call it socialist medicine.
Actually, I'm not sure because in the UK, I think they do have private doctors and they do have private insurance. So they do have the marketplace competing. So if it's not illegal, then
right.
Yeah.
You can go to private medicine in the UK. Sure.
It's just hardly anyone uses it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think more and more people are using it now. If the healthcare system sucks, right, you're going to find some way out. But if everyone's too poor to use it, then they're fucked.
Would you call?
They have a real problem with doctors too, because a lot of the doctors over there get paid chump wages, so they immigrate to the United States where doctors make bank, and they're like. So they get their education in England and they're like, I'm going to go to California where I can get fucking rich being a doctor. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Enough on this teacher's salary in the UK healthcare system.
Well, and this is what I've always said about the whole co-ops thing is like, I don't have a problem if a bunch of people get together and they want to start a co-op as a business. That's totally fine.
Yes.
Go for it. I will cheer you on. Okay. You share all the profits. You go share all the stuff. That's great. That's fine. I have a problem when the government comes in and says all businesses have to do
that model. Yeah, exactly. And that model always falls apart because human greed takes over.
Well,
they did a bunch of co-ops in Central and South America.
Yeah.
The government these socialist governments forced it on people. And then the people in the co-ops were like, we want to sell what we make on the private market because we make 10 times more money. And the government was like, what? You're not even selling it in the country?
Right.
They got super pissed at them. Yeah.
Well, and it's, they all, Richard Wolff and all these people, they always point to Mondragon. Mondragon, which I don't know enough about the structure to comment on. But when you kind of look at, there's a reason that the co-ops if co-ops were more efficient at engaging in the marketplace, there'd be a lot more.
They
of them,
would exist.
essentially.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot
They would
more of them.
already exist.
So, it kind of makes it very difficult. If it's a co-op, if you kind of go through the logistics of a co-op, it makes it very difficult to expand the business because most of the time people have no incentive to create like if you own a franchise, if you own a Burger King, okay, and your Burger King makes a lot of money and you're like, okay, I own this Burger